graphic that you can just put on the page with your search box. I think one of the papers they had was actually a state salaries database. One of the things they pulled out of there is who were the top earners in, I want to say it was Indiana. And it was a nice looking graphic. They had like a stack of coins with the person's head on top, and you know, the more money they made, the bigger the stack of coins. And it made the page interesting. You couldn't interact with it, but it answered the question that you knew that the user was going to have, and it answered for them, you know, right away. So do that kind of thing. It's getting more. You're getting more use out of that data by presenting it in a different way. As I said, I've you know, generally avoided building my own databases. One exception is this thing I did for a series that we're doing on aging in Roanoke. Roanoke is an older community that's going to get a whole lot older in the next 30 years or so. On a personal note, January a year ago, my father, who was 81 and living independently, although not in terrific health, had a heart attack. And I went and picked him up at his apartment, and I took him to the hospital, and he never went home again. And the heart attack triggered a rapid onset of vascular dementia. And so he went from being an independent person to being a dementia patient in about a day. He was in the Veterans Administration Hospital there in Salem for about 3 weeks. And then one day they said, well, we're going to discharge him tomorrow. We can't do anything else for him. Where do you want him to go? We had no idea. I didn't know how to go into that market of nursing care. And that's what he needed. And so we were totally dependent upon the social workers at the VA, who were actually terrific and at finding beds, which there weren't a ton of. First place he went to, that was a nightmare. A week later, he was back in the hospital because of their rotten care, with a distended belly because he couldn't urinate on his own. So well, you know, what can we do that's going to be? I don't want anybody else to be in that position. So I pulled together this this database of senior care resources around the Roanoke and New River valleys. This is the first thing I did in Caspio. As you can see, it maps them because proximity really matters. One of the places they wanted to place my dad was in Fincastle, which is a 30-minute drive from where my brothers and sisters and I live. And in Roanoke, a 30-minute drive is a pretty big deal, and he was not going to get a lot of company out there. So if you're looking to place your parent in a nursing home, or your spouse, or yourself, you want to know where it is, because the proximity to the people you love and whose company you want is going to matter. So this is I think there are only 110 records in this database. It's got home health care, adult daycare for you know, if people are if they're dementia patients or Alzheimer's patients, but they're still living in the home, but the spouse works. Got to take the Alzheimer's patient to adult daycare, hospice care, and assisted living. And then let's see, did I get one? Oh, wait a minute. Let me find a nursing home here. On the drill down page here, I went to Medicare.gov, where they have all the inspection reports, and I just by hand, you know, called some information that at least begins to give you an idea of the quality of the place. This was only for nursing homes that I could get this. But I was, you know, this is, and the reason I bring this up is this is one time where I'm actually taking data and adding to it by pulling from multiple places and doing the work myself. So nursing staff time per patient per day. How much time is a nurse going to have for your mom or dad in a day? That's a really telling number. It's also surprisingly low, anecdotally. And on their last health inspection, how many deficiencies did they have? How many on the last fire safety inspection, how many deficiencies did they have? So anyway, that's one where we put some work into it. I kind of covered the promotion thing before. One of the things that we're not, I want to do more of this kind of thing where I'm really working on things that go with stories that go in the paper that really complement the writing and reporting that's going on. The other thing I do is, I'm not, a whiz at computer-assisted reporting at all, but I'm pretty much all we got at this point. And so I'm trying to really add that to our newsroom as well and be a service department for people who just, and that part of it is growing, even if they're not necessarily thinking of, what's the data for the, where there's a database to go with this story that we need to put online. I get people that come to me all the time and say, hey, is there any data related to this? And I'll just go and looking. I mean, just, from knocking around on slow days, I found out where a lot of data sources are. Find out how to find a lot of things. Sometimes I'll just go onto the IRE site and buy a database just because somebody asked about it. We haven't had a really strong computer-assisted reporting program in years since we had, Paul, you probably know Ron Nixon. Ron was at our paper and got a lot of his training while he was at our paper, and then he went to work for NICAR. And since Ron left, we haven't had a really strong computer-assisted reporting program, so I'm trying to bring that piece of it back too. And so people are thinking of that. If you get good at this stuff, you'll find you can be a resource for all kinds of people. So all the data in this aging story, basically the nut graph of this aging series, was all data that I went and got. And it wasn't difficult stuff to find, but it was stuff that the word person didn't know where to go. She's a great storyteller, but she'll be the, first one to tell you. She wouldn't have known where to find this stuff. Want to work with reporters more. Want to do stuff where I'm really engaged in the reporting process, and ultimately might go back to double bylining stories. That's when it works the best, I think. When it's kind of a more organic effort. It's not just me off on the side doing my data thing. Although that can be pretty good too. I write a blog. Been kind of slow with it lately. Not a lot of posts. Mainly use it to promote the site. This is one about a database that did very well. It was #1 in traffic this week. Citation fish in Virginia. I have the biggest head on Roanoke.com. But I mainly use this to just promote what's on the site. Once in a while, I don't get a lot of comments, but once in a while a really good conversation starts. I put up a database about the city council stuff, all the expenses. That went crazy. People just hammering the council members. Incidentally, that guy, it turned out not only was he spending a lot, he was double dipping, and took about 2 days. It took a day after we reported that for him to resign. So I'll use this, again, mainly to promote, but once in a while a conversation starts, and sometimes kind of unexpected. I put up a database of student loan default rates for 5,000 colleges in Virginia. Again, low-hanging fruit. It's just sitting there on the Department of Ed's website. And I had all 5,000. I put them all out there, and and got a bunch of comments on that from people found that data that I wouldn't have. I just did it. I had it. It seemed like reliable data, and it wound up getting right much traffic and started a really good conversation on the blog. I also write a column about once a month in the paper, runs inside our local section, and I kind of do the same thing on there as in the blog, which is not only to promote things, but I'm also, I just feel a need to, at least for our users and our readers, to train them how to use the data. Train them to not only to think of it, that it's there, but here's what you can do with it, and that sort of thing. I think might have a link to. Oops, bad link. I'll fix that when I get out of here. Oh well. Another thing on the side, again, I try to do a little mining. I put little nuggets here. Again, it's a piece of information that's interesting, but maybe the main thing it's doing is it's pointing to a database that's over here. If there's stories related, every database page that I have, if there's stories related to it, websites related to it, including the source website, if I've gotten it down from someplace, those links are on the search pages. I've got stories about data. Sometimes it's about, most of the time it's about data we've got on the site. Not always. Sometimes it's just about data. And then, it's not data exactly, but, like a lot of places, if there's, some key document that's part of a story and we scan it, make a PDF of it and put it on the site, I link those up too, so at least we have kind of a library of them. If people want to go look at the Michael Vick indictment for dogfighting, they can go and look at it. Yeah, question over here.
Yeah, maybe just ethically speaking, on the list of nursing homes that you have there, I mean, would you want to put up like a interactive thing where people can riff on their experience with that nursing home?
We actually did that. It wasn't part of my gig, but we did have a message board on that, and actually that was one of the few times. I don't get very personal on my blog, but I did kind of basically told the story I told in here about kind of what motivated me to put that up there, and here's why I thought this was important to do, and so that there was a conversation that came from that, but. We do a lot with message boards, and there was that whole, and I don't know if you noticed when I had that one up there, that one had a different wrapper on it, had a different look. That had a whole site. That's an ongoing series, and so message boards are a big part of that. Yeah, you want to give people a place to to talk about it, and data. So it's data. So we felt it was important to have my silly little picture on here. All the contact information for me, same on the blog. Give them the data, tell them to go find things for you in it. The old crowdsourcing bit, and tell you about it. They'll see things that you didn't recognize. They'll find errors for you. Another thing I do is sometimes setting up these search boxes isn't as simple as you'd think. Like the crime search ones, the only thing the addresses aren't what they ought to be. They aren't standardized, and I'm not going to go in and clean up every individual address. So all you can do is really search on the name of a street, Maine, Bramilton, Thompson Memorial, whatever it is, but not the address. So how do I tell people to put in only that much? Because they'll go in and they'll put in 2417 Bramilton Avenue. That's too much information, they won't get any results. So I set the thing up, and I did like little sort of one-person focus groups. I went around to the newsroom, and I was like, hey, pull this site up. Hey, do a search on that real quick. And I would just look over their shoulder and see what they did with it. Did they enter the right thing? The way I had it written, did they follow the direction the correct way? And see how people use it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask you about the decision-making process to create your job as it is, because obviously when we're talking multimedia, there are several ways that your paper could have gone, and maybe there are other people who are doing similar positions, but different branches of multimedia. But for example, say they could have said, okay, we want somebody to be in charge of our video. What was it about data that they thought was going to be attractive? They thought it was worth creating a position and putting all this time and effort into it. What was the driver here?
Yeah. So the question is, why did we decide to have a data delivery editor as opposed to some other new online position? Part of it is just it's the culture at the Roanoke Times. It's been a big deal there to try to innovate online, if not generally, then certainly for papers our size. Anybody here from Gannett? Yeah, the Gannett papers have been way out front on this, and I guess it was a big corporate-wide kind of initiative to have these data sites and do data online. So we certainly didn't think of it, and I think the real spark was our editor was judging a contest for, I don't know, it was APME or I can't remember what it was. She was judging a contest, and Asbury Park Press in New Jersey. Their public service entry included stuff about some data that they had put online. She got, Carol Tarrant is our editor, got curious about it, went and looked at it, explored it, and said, we got to do that. And so it's really, this is, I don't want to say it's her baby. She has many, many babies, but it's really, that's the spark. You know, we're, you know, for context, you know, we've been, you know, obviously we're not growing complement in the news department. Nobody is. But we have been slowly shifting it to online. And my position as a reporter was not filled.
And if I could just follow that up with, are you seeing a preference among your readers for things that are, like I said, the visually attractive things like the tag bubbles, the clouds, versus just say searchable databases where we get lists?
Are readers seeing a preference for, you know, is it visualized versus something you go in and search and you get a spreadsheet kind of result, a table result? I think generally they prefer something that's visual, and particularly if they can interact with it, maps they really seem to like, but there are exceptions to that. And two of the best things I've had recently were the cemetery database, which had no visual component, and the city council one, which, you know, just the database itself, not that interactive pie chart. And this is just my hypothesis, but I think they're an exception to that because there are people in them, and there are stories in them, and they're nosy, for lack of a better word. You can go in there and see whose names are in them. Who did the councilman have lunch with? Who's buried in that cemetery? Just my hypothesis, but that's what I see. And incidentally, I know what people are looking at, and I watch it obsessively. When I put something up, I can't wait to go onto OAS or Google Analytics or whatever I'm using to track it and see what they're doing with it.